Now, of course, don't forget to save your scene as soon as you make changes. Okay, so currently our flashlight is turning on and off. We want to give it a time limit. We want to give it a certain amount of time before it either fails and you have to reset it, or you have to have a pickup and then give it a new battery, for example. So we need to put in some kind of timer. Now if we look back to the scripting review script, there's a timer right there. See, we have a variable that holds the value of our timer, and we have a maximum value, something to compare it to. In each update we're increasing the timer. We increase the timer, we add to itself time delta time, time since the last frame was run. So we're just adding a real time value here. And then we check if the timer is greater than or equal to our maximum value. If it's got to or it's past our value, then here it's just resetting. We're going to do some more to it. Let's get that timer in. Let's set up some variables first. And this will be of type float. And let's just assign it straight away. Let's start it off 0. Now, we need a maximum variable, something to compare our time to. So, kind of real world value. Let's just say at the moment, let's hard set it to about 3 minutes. There we go, 180 seconds. Now let's plug this in. Let's look at our state engine. While our flashlight is turned off, we don't need to run our timer here. Okay? So it's when it's turned on is when we start using our timer and then checking against it. So first, let's increase the value of our timer, just like we did before. So we add to the flashlight timer value time delta time, the time since the last frame. So we're adding the normal time value. And then we're going to check our conditional. So we're going to check if our flash timer is greater than or equal to our maximum time. Our timer's been running and it's got to or it's past our maximum time. So what are we going to do? We're going to change our state. So we run out of charge, we're going to start flickering. Okay, that's great. Let's just test that out quickly. Let's highlight our flashlight in the inspector. Okay, and while we're testing, let's just drop this down to 5 seconds. We don't want to wait 3 minutes to see this work. Of course, we start off turned off, so our timer is inactive. It's not doing anything. So we hit the F, and there goes our timer when the light is on. Okay, now as we reached or passed our maximum value, we see our state has changed to flickering. Okay, so that's all working there. That's great. Now while we're here, if we were in a flickering state, what would we want to do? Well, what have we got here? We've got an intensity. Let's see what that does. Okay, so we can change the intensity of our light. That can do that fast enough. You could give the illusion of flickering. Okay, so let's see how we can put that in. So I said change it fast enough, or let's just assign it a random value. Random. Okay, so let's look at that first. We want to create a random number. So what have we got? Random range, okay. Looks good, between a minimum and a maximum number. So we can set how our maximum limits of our random. Okay, there's two types of definition here, float and for integer. Now it's important to note this for integer. Just say we're looking for a whole number. Just say we wanted a number between 1 and 4. Now if we put 1 and 4 in, let's check here. It says between min inclusive and max exclusive. So if we had 1 and 4 here, this would only ever return 1, 2, or 3. Why? Because maximum is exclusive. So if we wanted a number between 1 and 4, we would have to give max 5, because that's exclusive. So if we had 1 and 5 here, we would get 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. It's just important to note when you start playing with random range and integers, there is a difference here. Now, let's look at the float value which we're going to be using. So the minimum will be inclusive. So if we said 0.001, there is a chance, randomly, that it could be 0.0001. And maximum is inclusive. So if we said 9.99, it could possibly return 9.99. Okay? So there we have it. Random range with a minimum value and a maximum value. That's going to give us a random number. So let's do that. So when we're flickering, let's create a local variable. This is just something we want to work out here and use here and then dispose of it. So let's do the variable. So it's the light strength, isn't it? Well, it's the light intensity. Let's just do that. Okay, so our light intensity, we're going to be creating a variable which is of type float. And let's try spelling it. Yes, got it. Okay, now we're going to be using a random. And we want to get a random from a range. Okay, and let's just set the bottom of the range to 0, so it completely has no intensity. Let's set the maximum. Now we had a maximum of 1 by default, so we could put 1 here. Okay, so now we're creating a random number. How can we apply this to our intensity? So here's our intensity of the light here in the component. How do we change this through script? Go back to the light component, the Unity scripting reference for light, and modifying the light component. Let's look at the variables. Okay, so there we have intensity. So how do we apply that? Light.intensity. Right there. Okay, equals something. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. Now let's type that in. So our light and the intensity of our light is going to be equal to the random number we just created. Okay? So let's see if that's working for us. So we have our intensity here. When we get past 5 seconds and our state changes, watch what's happening here and here. Let's run that. So our flashlight's off. Let's turn it on. Okay. There we go. Each frame, that's quite hectic and quite a lot, but we are getting the effect that we are after. That's flickering away quite madly. Look at that. Okay. I think it's happening a little fast personally, so I'd like to put a break in here so we're not getting this random value every single frame. Let's just do it every so many frames. Now we already have a timer variable set up. There's no point why we can't recycle that. So while we're going to flickering, before we go to flickering, let's just set that flashlight timer to 0 again. Okay, because we're going to be reusing that. I'm just going to hard code these values in. So flashlight timer plus equals time delta time. Okay, now we're just going to check if see, all this is only going to happen if the condition is true. So I've now put our random and our changing of our intensity inside the if. Okay, this is only going to happen if this is true. If what's true? If our flashlight timer is greater than, so I'm just going to hard code a value here, 0.1, 1/10 of a second. So every 1/10 of a second, we're going to get a new intensity. Let's just see if that's evened out our flicker a little bit. Save that out. Actually, because no, we'll leave it. Turn on our light. Wait for our 5 seconds. Okay. It probably doesn't seem like it's making much difference. Here's what we'll do. I said I hard-coded this. Let's expose this as a variable we can change in the inspector. So, let's create a new variable. And we'll call it flicker rate. Okay, at what rate will we flicker? And this is going to be of type float. And let's assign it straight away. What did I say initially? 0.1, 1/10 of a second. So we've created a variable. Let's replace our 0.1 with that variable. Beauty. Save that out. Let it compile, make sure nothing's gone wrong. Okay. Now let's put this up to a bit of a ridiculous number. 0.5. It's only going to flicker every half a second. Let's check that out. Hit F. Timer. Actually, that's not such a ridiculous number at all. That's still giving a decent value. Every half a second that's changing. You know what? I like it. I'm going to leave it. That's pretty good. So what happens if we hit the F now? Nothing's happening. Because we're in a state of flickering. Let's see. So when we press the F, we're only checking if we're turned off or if we're turned on. So if we're turned on, let's include another condition here. Or our flashlight state is equal to flashlight flickering state. Okay, so let's just check this. So if our flashlight is on, or if our flashlight is flickering, here we have the option to turn it off again. Let's see if that now works. Okay. I've made changes in the inspector here. I'm being told by Unity that I've made changes and I haven't saved them, so I'm happy with that 0.5, so let's save it. And again, let's test our flickering. I'm going to bring this down to 2 seconds. Start off, turn our torch on, 1, 2. Okay, our torch is now flickering. And we can hit F. Okay, so we turn the torch off. If we turn it on, notice I didn't reset the timer. So I haven't given them the cheat of being able to turn it off and on again to recharge, especially if you needed batteries. Okay, so it's still flickering. It's still not working for them. Okay. Sometimes that flickering is too bright, so let's even knock down the range. It's not quite as bright as it is when it's working. Great. Two seconds later it starts flashing, and hopefully that won't ever come as bright as it was as if it's working properly. Turn it off, turn it on again, but it's still not working properly. We need to reset it. We need to find a way of resetting it. Okay, that's going to be another input. So, let's just outright check. If our input, that's why I copy a lot. Get key down, and this time we're looking for a key code. Alt R. I'm going to be checking if we're resetting. Okay. Alright, yeah, I do. I want to show you what does this key code mean. Okay. So you see, if we look at input, look at the get key down command which we're using. See, there's two types here. We can use a string as an input we're checking against, or we can use a key code. Now I wanted to bring in a key code because here's another enumerator. It's an enum. Okay, it's a variable that's been set up, pre-programmed, with all these values in the variable. So there you go. There's an enum in practice, just like what you can make for yourselves. So enums are there. Alright, I've gone off track. Okay, so we're playing with the light intensity, random range, and we're resetting. So we're resetting the key code of R. So what happens when we're resetting? In our state engine, we want to be here. So our flashlight state is now equal to resetting, because we want to do those actions. Okay, now I'm going to cross-reference my old script, because when I was resetting, I basically used some yields. Gosh, there's another command. No, I used a timer. A whole bunch of if statements. Okay, how can we work this in and make it better and nicer and easier and neater? So, now flashlight's resetting. What can we do? We can recycle this timer again, can't we? So, before we reset, let's also reset our timer variable. So, in our resetting, I'm going to add to our timer, again, time, delta time. Now if flashlight timer is greater than, now I stepped this out last time, so let's do that again. So let's say if it's greater than the values I used for the time. So I went 7.5, so over 3/4 of a second. So if our flashlight has been resetting for more than 0.75 seconds, I set the light intensity back to the original, and then we change our state back to working again. So while we're resetting, we start using our timer again for a different purpose. We check out timers greater than 3/4 of a second. We'll return our light to our normal state, and then we'll leave our light on. Okay. That's another consideration. We're using our timer here. So again, we're going back to on. So we're using the timer here. Reset the timer to. Let's see if that's going to work. What's happening here? So we turn our light on. After 2 seconds, it'll start flickering. I hit the reset. There we go. Hopefully you saw that. Oh, it's so quick now. So again, I'll hit the reset, and I hit pause. So, in our reset, after 3/4 of a second, our intensity was set to 1. We reset our timer, because we're now going back to turned on, so we need that timer to count properly again to compare against our maximum value. Okay, now that just happened once. So when we're resetting, it pretty much stays in spot. So we want to maintain the flicker. So add a few more conditions. 5.5 light intensity. We don't want to do anything else. All we're doing is changing the intensity while we're resetting. What I did is I give it the impression of being tapped twice. So I turned off and on twice. 3, 5, 1, 5. So I'll just code this in and then I'll show you. 1, 0, 1, 0. So what's going to happen here? So we hit the R, our state becomes resetting. So we're running our timer. So check all these conditions, and the lowest one's down here. So we're going to probably fall down to here first, okay? It's our 0 of our timer. So it's 0.00 something. So we're going to fall down here. I'm going to set the intensity to 0. Okay? And as the timer's going again, we're going to check, and when our timer reaches a value greater than 0.35, we're going to bring it back to maximum. And then when it reaches a value greater than 5.5, we're going to turn it off again. And then when it reaches the top value, we're going to turn it on finally. We're going to reset our timer because we're going to be using our timer to turn it on again. So what does this all mean? So it should go for off, on, working. Let's see that happen. I hit play, flashlight's off, I hit F to turn it on. Past the 2 seconds, start flickering. I hit the reset. There we go, we had a couple of blinks, and it's back in action. And then it's off again. Reset, a couple of blinks, and that's all there is to it. Bang, bang. Now, I do apologise, it probably wasn't the best explanation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you the script, and I'm going to leave it there for a couple of seconds. And then I'm going to scroll down a bit. So you can see a few different functions here, these two. And then I'm going to scroll down to show everything else I've done. Now pause the video and check and copy and reference the scripts here. Okay? So hopefully there's enough information and also a bit of a guide onto how I kind of set things up here. Set things off. Now you see I only exposed one variable here for the flicker rate. I could have exposed variables for these different times. Could expose a variable for the last time. You can also expose variables for our range value.